Glamour and excitement, Brazilian style in Rio de Janeiro. The Rio Carnival and its rhythm, a vibrant flow of energy. A world-famous festival, but there are many others, and today more and more of them. An explosion of carnivals. This report will look at just a few carnival events throughout the world, some old, some newly revived. In many countries, carnivals have become big business. But we'll also see how the magic of carnival makes ordinary people the world over just let themselves go. South America has long had the most spectacular, most impassioned carnivals. As in Rio, so here in Montevideo. Thousands packed the main avenue to watch the inaugural parade. For the children, it's a time to marvel and wonder as they play with the walking puppets, the cabezudos. For this is a people's street carnival. It's supposed to last 3 days, but it continues for a month of noisy nights in the blue-collar quarters of town. Every evening, the bands perform in different parts of the city. It's hard to believe it all began as a religious festival. For these are the last days and hours of the season before Lent. This, the final festivity before the austere 40 days when Catholics stop eating meat. But it's really just a great chance for all these people, many of them poor, a chance to dress up and to have a good time. Whatever carnivals meant in the past, today they have a new popularity in Europe's Catholic countries. Here in Venice, it's the second year of the modern carnival, revived after 2 centuries. The city authorities invested a lot of money in Carnival Week. The result? Thousands of tourists came here in the off-season, late February. The carnival theme this year was the 17th century and the Age of Reason. But to observers, nobody around seemed rational. Anybody wearing costumes just played music, danced, or mimed. As the Italians say, anything goes at carnival time. Here, actors play a scene of 17th century Venetian life, a duel in original costumes. In Venice, many ordinary people wore costumes for Carnival and chose them with care. Others visited museums months before the festival, making notes on 17th century dress. Some reportedly paid nearly a month's salary for their elaborate lace costumes. At Carnival time, Venetian life seemed much as it was 3 centuries ago. And everywhere in Venice, stalls were selling cakes and sweets. Eating, an aspect of Carnival that hasn't changed. Celebration before the fast, the frugality of Lent. Celebration that was part of all events in the Venice Carnival. Here, traditional music in St. Mark's Square. On some days, it was almost impossible to move. On others, Venice was like a fairyland. Dressing up was part of the charm and fantasy, where people escaped into another world. These were the sights and sounds of the Venice Carnival. But there was another side to Venice, for the traditions of Carnival are also those of sadness. They remind the Christian faithful that Lent means penitence for past sins. This is the dance of the macabre. Here, character puppets dance out the patterns of life and death. The success of last year's Venice revival has given rise to other Italian carnival. Like Pisa, also reinvigorated after 2 centuries of silence. Here, as in Venice, the carnival became a work of art. Pisa generated much creative input in the Italian tradition. Several months ago, the city asked leading stage designers and directors to organize events. They chose to symbolize their celebration with a plexiglass model of Pisa's Leaning Tower, more than 10 meters high. This was how they opened the carnival. Makeup artists prepared the participants. Anybody could rent 18th century costumes for only about $12. The festival even borrowed costumes and stage props from Milan's La Scala Theater.
Monica, il telefono per favore a casa.
In Pisa, then, behind the modern street jazz bands, people could see how carnivals like this helped develop popular theater, song, and folk culture. Here at Viareggio, unlike Pisa and Venice, they've had a carnival every year for the last century and more. Maybe that's why a whole carnival industry has emerged. The end result may look spontaneous, but it takes months of preparation. Artisans already created beautiful parades here way back in the 19th century. And this festival had a distinctive hallmark once artists like these began working with their own designs. Everything's aimed at originality and spectacular creation. Viareggio out of season is normally like any resort town in winter. But here also, carnival time leaves a trail of color and goodwill, a festive feeling that brings the place alive. This year, in the first of 3 two-hour parades through Via Reggio, at least 4 floats honored an Italian puppet just a century old, Pinocchio. Over 100,000 people watched. In the tradition of the Via Reggio Carnival, there was social satire to humor them. Costumed actors played nationally known figures, sad and sorry behind prison bars, or riding along on giant snails. But once again, nothing could top Via Reggio's huge puppets, looming larger than life over the cheering crowds. This, the essence and the flair of Italian carnival. In the Via Reggio parade, nothing was sacred. Everything could be a target for satire, a symbol of modern Italy's cynicism about politics and politicians. Via Reggio has had more than a century of carnival. But elsewhere in Europe's Catholic countries, other festivals have been going much longer, and they seem stronger than ever. Thousands come here to Lance, a small farming village in northern Spain. In Lance, there's been a break of just 4 years in the carnival tradition during the Spanish Civil War. For this carnival goes back to a myth, a legend. Residents parade a puppet. They'll put him on trial, then burn him. He's an ancient bandit leader. In front walks Zirapot, a heavy, slow kind of guy, and the crowd makes fun of him. For these are the 2 main characters in a precise ritual. No one knows how it started, but during the 3-day celebration, almost all the men in this tiny village take part in the masked processions. And through all the festival, residents perform traditional dances called Zortzico. That's a Basque name, and this is Basque country. That cultural heritage, a part of modern Spain's political landscape, may help explain the continued vigor of the Lance ritual. In a cavern, the villagers prepare to burn their puppet, to cast out the evil around them. The same vigor, an expression of the same pride and cultural roots, can be found throughout Europe. In Germany, for instance, and here in Austria's Tyrol. The village of Imst celebrates the annual Demons Festival, an ancient tradition, as in Spain. Local people cast out the evil spirits, the demons. This time, they're scared away by these wooden masks and by much singing and shouting. The masks are centuries old. They've been handed down from one generation to the next. Over 10,000 people came for this year's festival. It's hard to believe it now, but in pagan times this was serious, a matter of life and death. Today it's a celebration, where normally sane people, typists, clerks, and postmen, become exorcists and witches, weird creatures from the past. A celebration of a sort. But the biggest, the most spectacular celebration, the most violent and the most erotic, is still the Rio Carnival. Even before night falls, the procession and the crowds interact, let their hair down, go wild with excitement. For this carnival belongs to the streets. It was born there and it lives there, with the cariocas, the people of Rio. Every year, scores of people die in murders linked with the carnival frenzy. Such is the passion of this celebration. It touches nerves inside people, and it moves them. Here are the carnival king and queen, like no other royalty, but leaders of the fiesta. As night falls, excitement in the streets boils over. The samba rhythm affects everyone. You can't watch the carnival and stay still. You have to move. That's what binds those in the street to those in the parade. That's what brings Rio together for days on end. It's everywhere, incessant, insistent, the samba beat. At the Rio Carnival, there are costumes of great beauty. Prepared weeks before the festival, stitched together day and night, mostly by women in the back streets of the city. They cost a lot of money, but for the poor of Rio, an expression of their dreams. To look like a princess for a few magic nights at carnival time. This is not just a time for beautiful women. The samba schools in the streets are competitive. They rival each other to make their beat the most infectious. Their music's right at the core of the Rio Carnival. For a week, it seems, there's no other sound in the city. For some people, the sleepless days and nights are too much. But the energy of most parade bands and dancers is a surprise for those who watch them. They never seem to stop. The floats here have no equal in extravagance. They feature kings and queens, gods and goddesses, even palaces and windmills. So why are carnivals today more popular than ever? Sociologists talk of the need for play and celebration to break the routine of modern life. Economists say carnivals attract tourists, and that's a prized source of revenue. Some politicians say carnivals like this one in Rio divert attention and concern away from social inequalities and political action. But for these people in the streets, carnival is a way of life, and that's how many of them see it. Even in Rio, the carnival has to stop sometime. This is the way back home, the morning after the final parade. For a few crazy days, the people of Rio, and others like them the world over, have shed their inhibitions, surrendered to the spirit of carnival. Whatever the explanation, the carnival phenomenon today is growing, and that's good news for people everywhere who enjoy a good time.